My first push on the pedal was at 6 am, and as soon as I sat down, gaining control of my balance, I knew I had a long day ahead of me. I am a long distance cyclist. After having cycled 200 kilometers a few months before, I set out for a 300-kilometer challenge which started at Chembur and would end at Belapur railway station. Not the most glorious finish line imaginable, but still a finish line nonetheless. Now, for those who don't know, Chembur is to the northeast of Mumbai, whereas Belapur is the business district in Navi Mumbai. You're put into groups when you start, and everyone in that group is competing for the same distance. There were 8 other riders and me. Our route consisted of passing through Panvel into Pen onto the Mumbai-Goa highway up to the halfway mark of Hotel Vivasa, which is at Mahad, and back. Our time limit was 20 hours. But I never keep such calculations in my mind because I simply cycle. I reached the first half by 3 pm, and after a short snack break, I was back on my cycle at 3:30, but now it actually got tougher. At 8 pm, my GPS told me that I had pedaled for 228 kilometers. My legs felt like jelly. My back felt stiff. My eyes were beginning to haze. Some of the riders I started with were long gone and some were behind me. Even my headlamp was fading, lighting about only a meter of space in front of me before giving into the night's total blackness on the highway which stretched to no end. I've been involved in cycling escapades and always come through by finishing, but this was different. My mental agility was shattering. It echoed down in my physical strength. I was extremely upset for having to think about quitting. Instead of being in sync with the universe and at one with nature, I was ready to go home. I was at 2 with nature. I was 26 kilometers away from the nearest town, the junction of which was called Vadkal. Using the last ounces of energy in my frail body, I reached that junction by 10:15 pm. I had nearly 47 kilometers more to go to reach the finish line, but no, I could not cycle anymore. I gave up at this point by getting off my cycle, putting it on a stand as soon as I stopped. But now I had to get home from there. Home being over 80 kilometers away and with hardly any sign of life on the road. There were no autos, no taxis, and no buses passing by. I imagined riding to Belapur railway station on the back of a leopard. Now that would be some sort of an entrance. It would sure make me feel a lot better for having given up. And my picture would definitely be in the newspaper the next day, even if I finished last. But coming back to reality, I saw that there were only trucks and tempos. Halting right next to a police chowki, which was this one luminous spot in that dark and desolate hour, I flailed my lifeless arms in the air trying to signal passing vehicles. Just then, 2 policemen came over to where I was standing. I remember they were wearing sweaters which were open zipped from the center, and their flaps had obscured my view of the badges which was pinned underneath on their shirts. They were looking at my cycle and talking to each other as if I wasn't even standing there. Taking it in as if a bike had materialized from the darkness on its own and they were trying to figure out if it was real or not. Now, my cycle is a mongoose, both figuratively and literally. Like the animal, my bike is sleek and strong rather than intimidating, overcoming its competition through a persistent dance rather than a strike. And on the literal side, it's a mongoose too, named by the American company that made it last year. It's different than the Indian brands and has a sturdy front frame that always catches the fancy of the passerbys. I wasn't surprised it was attracting some attention even in the dead of the night. My reflective jacket, bright helmet, and blinking lights somehow glowed less than the bike itself. I stood there as the 2 policemen observed every part, taking it in on a deep level, as if we were all stuck in a page of Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance. As if I wasn't even standing there, they began pressing the brakes of my bike, which was on a stand at that point. It was like they were double stopping it from moving. After they thoroughly inspected my cycle, one of the officers finally said, "अरे आपके पहले काफ़ी cyclists आके निकल गए. Many cyclists came and left before you." I let out an embarrassed sigh and said, "हाँ पता है मैं थक गया हूँ. I know I am tired." Then the other officers, while still looking at my cycle, said, "Can I ride it?" Obviously, I would have shrugged off such a request by saying I'm in a hurry. But these people were policemen, with their mother tongue being Marathi. I know it seems like a small detail, the language issue, but Marathi is a big weakness of mine, and I didn't know how to gently say no without offending them. So I said, "Sure." So he sat on it and began pedaling around the compound next to the chowki. After he was done, the other one took his turn. I tried to smile and pretend this is all very flattering while trying to get a fleeting glimpse of their badges and to memorize their numbers. While the second one was taking a ride, I tried to shift the focus of the scene. I asked the policeman standing there if he could help me stop any trucks heading to Mumbai. The police are generally good at this sort of a thing. He nodded and he informed the other cop who was still doing loops like a schoolboy. The officer slowly walked across the middle of the road in front of a truck that swerved around him and spotted a tempo. He pointed for his driver to halt at the side. After a brief conversation, he called me towards the vehicle. The two drivers, dressed in clothes like they hadn't changed for a week, got off and came towards the back. The co-driver was short, slightly overweight, wore a monkey cap, while the driver was taller, broader, and had a trimmed beard. The co-driver started speaking with me in broken English straight off. He asked, "Where do you go?" In situations like these, I try not to sound articulate. The better strategy to match them. I said, "I go Mumbai." Once they were done receiving all the details of my race, the policeman turned to me and said, "आप बैठ जाओ, घर तक लेके जाएंगे. You can sit, they'll take you home." But the co-driver clarified, saying that they would drop me only till Belapur railway station. I was in a dire situation. Obviously, I agreed. The shutter at the back of the tempo was opened up. Inside, it was empty except for some giant rolls of bubble wrap muddled together and strewn cardboard pieces lying around. I put my cycle in first, then climbed in myself. Before they went back to the front of the tempo, I was told I would have to pay 500 rupees. I agreed. The ignition was turned on and the tempo slowly picked up speed. After shouting a "thank you" to the two policemen, I made my way to the corner of the bouncing canister and began lying down on the bubble wrap. It was just like a bed. The tempo was a new purchase and hardly shook as much as it should have on terrible roads we rode over. Plus, after living in Mumbai all my life, I had built up a resistance to getting tossed around like a rag doll. I could get comfortable in almost anything. After 15 minutes, we came to a halt. The two of them came out and said that they wanted to eat dinner. I nodded. Then the co-driver came back a few seconds later and insisted I join them. I wasn't hungry and I told them that. But he got a little louder and said, "Come man, you eat food." I replied saying, "I eat food before only." To which he replied, "No man, come eat. You don't pay." If you know me, you know that those are magic words to me. So I relented. But something felt strange. I jumped out of the tempo, pulled the shutter down, and followed him. We walked past what looked like the kitchen, which was half outside this place. And the eatery seemed like it was constructed out of debris and glue, with a tattered piece of cloth hanging down from the entrance that we had to duck to enter. I sat at the table with the two of them and I was asked what I would drink. I said I wanted to have mango slice. The co-driver called for it enthusiastically. The waiter said that there wasn't any and brought a Sprite instead. I said that it causes gas, to which the waiter quipped saying that it was drinks like mango slice in fact which causes gas. Though this was scientifically inaccurate, it was apparently very funny to the people sitting on the table next to us, and they all laughed. The two drivers called for fried rice, and while we were waiting for it to come, I noticed the menu that was hanging down from the wall. Most of the items were written in the most awful English imaginable. Some of them read, chicken lollipop, chicken sweet corn soup, yummy fried rice, and Salman special fried rice. In a few minutes, the food was served. It was veg fried rice with chicken gravy poured on it, and it tasted exactly like you would have imagined. I actually didn't have a plate, so I just sat there quietly watching the two of them eat. When the co-driver saw this, he stopped and kept encouraging me to eat some of the rice on his plate. I was confused, but I started to eat. Then I noticed that the co-driver began dividing the rice into two halves. It was really bizarre. He made sure that his spoon did not touch any of the rice on my side of the plate. Although it was nice to get some food, but I was still very anxious to get home. It was now 11:15 p.m. We finished our halves of the rice and we headed back to the tempo. They jumped in the front and I found my way to my corner in the back. And the co-driver said, "Hey man, you sleep, okay? Wake you when we reach Belapur." I nodded and looked him in his glazed eyes. While the driver was sober, I could not tell whether this guy the co-driver was or not. I made a grunt of an agreement and the tempo started. This time they left the shutter partially shut instead of fully open. All I could see was a sliver of the street, and it was up to my imagination to wonder who was getting mugged, inside which dark lane were thieves plotting their next robbery, or if someone was screaming for help with no one coming to their rescue. Despite the thoughts racing through my mind, I could not help but fall asleep. I felt someone shake my shoulder. Belapur was all I heard. The shutter screeched open and I squinted with the street light. I felt for my bike and found it next to me and started to lift it and get it outside on the street, which is when I noticed the two of them say something to each other, and the co-driver turned to me and said, "We drop you at home. Go home. Taxi too much money." They further added that I might have to cycle 1 kilometer after the Vashi toll naka to avoid the octroi inspection. My phone had died. Even if I wanted to, I could not call for a private cab, which might have cost me over 1500 rupees. They were even saying they won't charge a high amount and get it done for in 800 rupees. I agreed. But at that moment, I had to pay the 500 rupees I had promised, which I did. I pulled out a 1000 rupee note and got the 500 change back. I walked back inside the tempo and we were off. We stopped after a few minutes, and as per our plan, I got down, cycled past the inspection point and climbed back in. We set off for Mumbai. The tempo screeched to a stop at Mahim. It was nearly 2 a.m. I realized that the talkative one lived there and they asked me to take his seat in the front. This was where the two of them got into a tussle. The apparent reason of argument was that the co-driver wanted a share of the 800 rupees. I stayed out of it by trying to pet a stray dog on the side while holding my breath. Something didn't feel right, and I was just about to make a move with my bike when the co-driver ran off fuming and the driver revved the engine and motioned for me to get in. But my worries didn't end there. As soon as we turned towards the highway, a cop gestured the driver to stop. Just as I was about to get out, the driver told me that I should tell the cop that I was in the tempo because I was tired and that he was willing to help me reach home. When I went out and looked for the cop, I saw that he had already opened the shutter all by himself and was looking straight at my bicycle. The cop told me to go and sit back inside the tempo while he dealt with the driver. The cop took the driver's papers. The next minute, he came back saying that the cop wanted some money because my cycle was an imported brand. He said the amount quickly and I wasn't sure if I heard it correctly. What? I said. But then the driver said, I tried to explain, but you can't reason with him. So I took out the 400 the driver told me I owed and I handed it to him. What's this? He said. It's 40, not 400. Oh, I said, and I gave him 220s. He walked to the cop, came back in the next minute, started the tempo, and we were off towards Kandivali, which is home for me. It was now 2:15 a.m. Driving down the highway, I got a world view of his opinions about cycling, which according to him was meaningless, and how I should rather spend my time working and earning money while I was young. It was meaningless, but that was kind of the point. Where the two of us were in our lives at that moment was quite different, and the way we define using our time says a lot about how lucky I was and how unlucky he. We finally reached Kandivali. I got off and unloaded the bike. I handed him the money, thanked him, stood there with a huge smile. He put the money away, shook my hand, jumped back in his tempo and drove off like it was no big deal. But to me, the favor of dropping me off home safely by both of them was nothing less than a big deal. For the first time in my life, my instincts downshifted. I had gone 82 kilometers in the middle of the night. I was fed by two guys I didn't know at all. I was transported all the way home for a below market rate. I was practically taken care of, and that meant a lot. We've learned, and sometimes for good reason, to expect the worst in India, especially when alone, away from home and at the mercy of others. We've gotten to the point that our guard is always up, where we read between the lines to find out not if, but exactly how and when we'll be ripped off by the other person. It's days like this that give me hope. There are decent people all over this country, people who don't try to cheat you, take advantage of you, or steal your bike, even though they had many chances to do so. There's a lovely Indian proverb that says, the cobra will bite you whether you call it Cobra or Mr. Cobra. Is it true? Sometimes, but not always. And that not always makes a huge difference. My faith in the world can never be extinguished as long as there are times when even a mongoose can curl up on a bubble wrap pillow at the end of the day. Thank you.